The Say Something podcast is brought to you by amomentwithmorris.com and blackblueprints.com. That's blackblueprints with a Z.com. Here I'm Jermaine Morris with the one and only Mr. Barry Accius.
Yo.
We're bringing episode 17 for you, the Say Something podcast.
Say something, say something, say something.
Where we get together and talk about stuff going on out here in this life, out here in the world, out here in these streets.
No doubt.
Stuff that we think that not only we, as in me and him, but everybody should be saying something about.
No doubt. We definitely need to say a lot about a lot of things. I don't think too many people are saying enough about.
A lot of stuff been going on out here in the traffic. Big, huge thing right now, and if you're in anywhere America, is the Easter weekend shooting out there.
Yeah, what you do for Easter? Like, let's not before we jump into that. Like, what was your Easter thing?
It was a quiet little Sunday. The only people I came across are the people I saw at the grocery store. I only left the house once.
The grocery store was open?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. It was quiet. They said the bigger rush was on Saturday.
No doubt.
I got some groceries, went back to the house. I passed a neighbor when I came home, and I actually, for the amomentwithmorris.com, wrote a new blog post, and I actually got some work done. It was cool.
You ain't sent me a blog post in since June or something.
I ain't written one in a minute.
Wow.
Yeah. I ain't written one in a minute, so I'm back to work now.
No doubt.
New every Sunday. That's the new rule. Every Sunday,
so
new blog post at amomentwithmorris.com.
Yeah, all right. Well, I need that.
Yeah, every Sunday, new blog post.
Your perspective is enlightening.
You know what? And the blog post actually is relative to what's going on out here.
Said, man, in these streets. So you did your Easter thing. You chased some bunnies. You went and found some eggs. Let me before we really get it in. When did bunnies start laying eggs?
I believe that was when Cadbury had the commercial where it was. You remember where they had all the auditions, the Cadbury cream egg.
I'm trying to figure that out. I don't remember anything that you're saying. But I'm trying to get this. Like, how did we associate the eggs, the Easter, the bunny, the whole bit?
Well, most of that, and this is not to take away from anybody's religious ideology. I'm not trying to rain on your parade.
You can rain on their parade. It's
well,
okay.
no, I'm saying if you celebrate the Passover. 16th Nisan, if you're Christian, if you're recognizing the death and resurrection of Jesus, that's what you subscribe to. No, I'm saying that's one thing. The celebration, the eggs and the bunny is something separate. They've just been kind of joined together.
But you still have not answered the question.
Well, no, that's what I'm getting to.
Can you just get to that? I just want to know, how did the eggs and the bunny
because they're representations of, I believe it's the goddess Ishtar.
Okay.
Which is the goddess of fertility. Okay. You ever hear people saying hump like rabbits?
Exactly.
And fertile like eggs?
No doubt.
That's where that comes from.
Okay.
So and that's the onset of spring, which spring love. Spring is in the air. Fertility.
Damn. And here comes the eggs.
And then you put those two together.
With the bunny.
Hump like rabbits, two fertile. They both represent fertility.
But they don't hatch. They don't push out no eggs.
No, it's not the rabbits are not laying eggs. They're just two symbols that are together. The same as a Christmas tree and a reindeer. They're just put together, but they're not.
The whole thing, and shouts out to all my people, who do what they do. And this is not a bitter black man who's trying to take away all these European pagan holidays away from the kids. It's just sometimes I think it's just too much. Sometimes I think that we need to separate what it is to what it isn't. If it's Resurrection Day, if it's Easter, choose a side. And I know people break down like, okay, well, because last year it was on March 27th, and this year it was April 16th. And every year, if you look at it, the whole date changes.
Yeah, that's different though. Because it's in relation to the harvest moon.
The harvest moon. I get the whole shit.
That's why the date changes.
Yeah, I get it. But guess what? My date of my birthday remains the same. So this is what I'm going to do officially.
Okay.
For all my people. My birthday was May 29th.
Okay.
But this year, guess what I'm going to do? I am going to celebrate it June 29th. Okay. I'm switching it all up, baby. June 29th.
June 29th is new Barry Accius'
That's
birthday.
What I'm just saying. Right?
I mean, I get that. but a lot of the stuff falls off of a lunar calendar, which is the cycle of the full moon, which in a lot of days predates the calendar that's used now. So if you follow the lunar calendar, you don't care what the calendar is.
Yeah.
So if that's,
I get all that.
Well, but I'm saying the reason why I say that is most people who celebrate it don't do that. Like they don't take it a step further. They just do. Hey, somebody told me what day we celebrating Easter this way. Oh, well, it's this Sunday. Okay, we're gonna do it this Sunday.
They do.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
They're not digging that.
They're not digging that deep.
They're not that deep.
They're just it's March 23rd. Oh no, it's April. And he's risen. He's resurrected. So he's resurrected a different time every year. Like that's my thing. I'm not gonna sit there because people get too sensitive when you talk about politics and when you talk about their religious beliefs. Yeah. Right? And when you talk about their badass kids, when their kids is acting bad, right?
All that stuff.
So I'm not going to go into it, but I just find it kind of funny how, because I don't subscribe to none of the many religions that we have, that we've been given and ordained to try to follow so we can walk our way into heaven. I don't. I believe. I think sometimes people find it odd that I believe in something higher. I do. I'm not an atheist. I'm nothing like that. Yeah. I definitely believe. I just don't subscribe to all the hypocrisy and all of the craziness when every time, it comes to a holiday, we want to script it like before. It was like it was just Easter. Then it's like, well, you know what? We've woken up a little bit, so we're going to just call it the Resurrection Day, which is not about a bunny. It's not about an egg. And then the simple fact that we have bunnies and eggs, it's just like all of it is like the way you've broken down. I get it. I understand it. I just think to me, it's absolutely hilarious.
Okay. How'd you spend your Easter?
Oh, well, first of all, I was actually in the Pacific Northwest. Shouts out to all my people in Portland and in Seattle. I actually had an event out there that I was, attended with one of my mentees out that way, who goes to Oregon State, a youth conference in Portland. So rocked out over there. It was powerful. Over 500 youth there, and just people. I didn't know there was that many people in Portland, black people in Portland.
Really?
You know what? To be honest with you, bro, like I've been to Portland several times when I used to do my dirty work, right? And I was on the underground, so I saw the Negroes doing whatever they was doing. But I mean, that many youth and that many other people that wasn't in the kind of lifestyle that I was living, and that weren't running around homeless. Because when you really look into Portland, like you go into it, dog, you don't, just Oregon in general, you don't see that many black folk. It ain't diverse like that.
You'll find in Portland, I've been through there a few times, and you'll find in Portland. Now, if you start talking about like Bend, Oregon, and Merrill, Oregon, and some of them other,
oh man,
or if you find near the colleges,
So
if you find,
of course, the colleges, because
no, but I'm saying, but that's where you'll see a little bit more.
But it's not like for instance, when I went to Seattle, it was like night and day, and I've been to Seattle again. I hadn't been to Portland and Seattle since 2008, so it was almost like my redemption tour.
Okay.
Yeah, because back in the day when I was going out there, I was doing, like I said, dirty
opposite
work
stuff.
Yeah. So going in there, gentrification is
I spent a little time at Tacoma. I'm familiar.
I mean, it's in way effect, just like everywhere else. And one thing that I learned when I went to each city, and as I go, and I've been around so many different cities, and I tell people all the time, if you're not traveling and not really living, so sit there and start, before you can talk about passporting it, you need to start getting to these states, start really checking out the environment in these different cities.
Sidebar, you're going to need a passport to go state to state eventually.
You know what?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
But listen, that ain't even that. But
that was coming.
Don't stress me out on that, right? Because there's going to be people going to be sitting right here.
That was coming.
But what I found to be like really the norm, or like the set movement, is the downtown and city areas are beginning to flourish, right?
Okay.
They're rebuilding, the state of the art, it's technology, it's the
especially in Seattle.
Oh man, it's very hip. It's newness, right? And poverty is at its, like, there's tent cities everywhere. Poverty is at its all-time high. So there's tent cities and everywhere. It's like not only in Oakland, not only in Sacramento, but it's in Portland. And Portland is crazy, right? But at the same time, with all that as well, black people in all these places are not striving, are being moved out, being pushed out to a lot of these suburbs, right? So the black communities that have been kind of stated there, they're now Negroes being pushed and moved out. So I've seen this kind of agenda being in every city, whether it's D.C., Baltimore, Brooklyn, Dallas, whatever.
Gentrification is nationwide. Gentrification, if you're not familiar with the terminology, I know you've seen it wherever you are in your city. Gentrification, though it is not racially based, there seems to be races that get hit by it more than others.
Oh, yeah.
The basis of gentrification is to go into lower income areas, and then you purchase the properties for cheap.
Yeah.
And then you upgrade those areas and you kind of raise the price point. So just an example is, say you live in an area where you found an apartment for $800 a month. Like that's where you're living at now. And so gentrification comes in, they buy up the buildings, develop, and now all of a sudden that apartment that was $800 a month, because of the new boutiques on the corner, the new diners, the new restaurants, it's now $1,350 for the exact same apartment.
Yes, sir.
But because the surrounding area has upgraded, now people who were living at $800 could afford $800. Now they move out the people at $800 because the people who were $800 can't afford $1,350.
Yeah.
So now you get a brand new group of people in, and the people paying $8 got to pack up and leave Dodge.
You got developers becoming billionaires.
But that's the hustle.
And you know what? And commonly, if it's a developer, that's attached to the city, and that's attached to the city officials. You know what I'm saying?
There's some kickbacks going on.
So there's definitely, matter of fact, the craziest story, man. Like my brother, you know, shouts out to my brother, you know, Pierre Harper. He actually had somebody working on his crib, right?
Okay.
And the person was really, you know, half-ass Negro doing half-ass jobs in his bathroom, right? So, you know, it took him like 65 days to do the bathroom work, right? When everybody else was knocking shit out. He sends me a link, and this guy that was helping or, you know, doing the work in his house is now being indicted for fraudulent, you know what I'm saying, fraudulent business with the city, getting those kind of kickbacks that we're talking about, you know, building and developing certain projects. Like, he's caught up in that scandal.
Yeah.
And what I told him, I said, black people aren't allowed to do white collar crimes. Like, as soon as black people try to do the white collar crime things, they get hit a lot quicker and a lot faster than norm.
Okay, what I would say to that, and I agree with you completely, and if you ever remember, you would see it on TV if you didn't have this real world experience, to where there was an old joke that black kids are surprised that white kids talk to their parents the way they do, just as white kids are surprised that black kids don't. Like, if you ever grow up, the idea of cursing your mama out or really just even stating your opinion was foreign in most black families. But then you go over to your white friend's house and he's telling his mom to shut up. You're invading my personal space. This is my room. Like, you know, that kind of that back and forth that was not prevalent in most black homes. Well, that same thing kind of applies to crime. Your white friend Timmy may do some stuff. When he gets caught and when you get caught, it's not the same. White Timmy can yell back at his mama, telling her to shut up and get out my room, and he's put on timeout.
Yeah.
You tell your mama to shut up and get out your room, and you waking up. Like,
for real.
Like, you waking up with a concussion,
yeah.
and you trying to figure out what happened and how many people jumped you.
That's crazy.
But the same rule applies when it pertains to crimes and stuff out in this society.
I mean, and I look at that. And then, just like I said, just traveling, you get to see a lot of different things. And, you know, that's how I spent my time. I just hung out, did what I did, visit people, and just chilled and just saw a lot of the work that, you know, we're doing and a lot of the work that we need to do overall. Like, every city is being hit, you know what I'm saying? And when I say tent city, I mean, really, there's people that are homeless that are living on sidewalks, yo.
Well, and let's address that for a second too, because you hear about the war on terror, you hear about the war on drugs. There's a war on poverty. There's a war on homeless. Like, I think a lot of people don't get. It's against the law to be homeless. Like for real, to take that in. Like, if you think about somebody who's struggling, somebody who's destitute, somebody who's starving, that's against the law. Like, if you don't have a home, if you don't have a residency, you don't have an address, You can't just sit where you want. You can't just sit. That's loitering. It's against the law to sleep in public places. Like, you can't, like, those tent cities. We're here in Sacramento. I know you can hear this anywhere, but we had an area, a little tent city set up of people who they were kind of pushed in this area with nowhere to go. The city came through, police officers came through with box cutters and came through and slashed the homeless tents, the makeshift shelters that they had, destroyed them and kicked them to the ground and told them to keep it pushing, because nobody wants that in their city. But you're talking about people with literally nowhere to go.
Yeah.
There's this idea that people are choosing to be on the street.
Yeah, well, then you remember when, they had the Super Bowl over there in Santa Clara, right? That you have San Francisco, 20, 30 minutes from Santa Clara, right?
Something like that.
And you literally had homeless people being pushed out of their community in San Francisco, right? Because
it's not a good look.
Yeah, because they didn't want the tourism and all of the money that was going to come. Because to be honest with you, if they had kept a lot of the homeless around, they was going to come up as well, right? Yeah. That was going to be a big weekend for them.
Oh yeah, trust me. When it came to Super Bowl weekend, Santa Clara and the Bay Area was flooded with homeless and strippers.
But exactly, yeah,
because it was a money weekend.
It was. They shipped them out. But what I'm just basically saying is, in those parts, in this situation overall, man. It's a sad thing, man. It's always important to give back because you're going to get back. But I just hate that situation. I hate it so much because it's like I know that could be me in any given day.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to say something and acknowledge the people who are out there struggling, to have a degree of compassion when you come across these people. Everybody out there sleeping on the street is not a drug addict.
Yes, sir.
Everybody out there is not a criminal.
Yes, sir.
Everybody out there is just not just the lowest drudges of society. Just to put it in proper perspective, just because that's always important we like to do on this show, is the average American is 2 weeks away from homelessness. Like really get that in. Wherever you are, for the most part, anywhere in America. Now, there's exceptions. Some people are doing better than others, have certain savings, have reserves, whatever. But if you work right now, if your income was cut off for 30 days, whatever you don't get a penny from today for 30 days, and then you don't get paid for 2 weeks from that day, most of you would be on the street.
Well, I'm about to be on the street because I just looked at my bank statement from this weekend.
Yeah.
And I'm going to need a loan, bro.
I'm saying that's just real.
No, but I really need some money.
Well, we just upgraded to Say Something Studio.
I'm just saying, though, man.
But this is...
I know we put some money on the mics and all that, but brother, that's another thing. Portland has probably got some of the greatest places to eat, dog. Like, yes. Real, and I'm telling you, I've been to New York, Chicago, Dallas, but Portland
got a lot of good spots.
And the thing about it is they have those food trucks. It's food truck mania there. Like, that's like...
You sound like you're trying to relocate.
Man, let me tell you something. If that weather was a little bit better and there was a little bit more black folk, but shoot, you never know. I might get it popping over there. But that part, and it was just all of these moms and pop. When we talk about food to fork, talk about that. That's the new Sacramento thing.
Farm to fork.
Farm to fork joint. That's what it is. Farm to fork joint. Sacramento claims that. I don't know. I just can't buy that, man.
Yeah, that's the whole, if you're not familiar, it's the whole straight from the ground to your plate is Sacramento's new creed. It used to be the City of Trees. Now
it should stay the
Farm
City of
to
Trees.
Fork. Trying to spearhead that campaign nationwide.
There were so many different spots you wouldn't expect. And like I said, I've been there before, so coming back to seeing even newer spots, I was like, yo, I got my food on. So now, like I said, let's get back to this, man. I need a loan, dog.
We'll talk after the show.
All right.
Like I said, there's a lot that's happened. So Easter weekend, so a lot of people had the opportunity to get together with family and friends. And I say this regardless of whatever your religious perspective is, if you got the chance to see grandma, you got the chance to see your grandbabies, you got the chance to see, little sisters home from college because of spring break. Like, hopefully you had an opportunity to do some of that sort of stuff, because as much as it was good times for a lot of people, you get to hang out, and even if you had the Easter egg hunt in the backyard and whatever that was that you were doing, the struggle was real for a lot of people. And, we kind of touched on it a little bit just to get started. But there's a man that I want to give the nod to, because he lost his life on some nonsense, and that was Robert Godwin Sr. Now, most of the headlines were filled with the person who took his life, the person who shot him on, who posted the shooting on Facebook, and it sent a manhunt over 5 states and all that. But I'm just giving the first moment to Robert Godwin Sr. He was a grandfather who spent the day with his family, and he got to see his kids and his grandkids and his loved ones. And, you know, with the Tupperware and tinfoil, he took some food home, and he decided to walk home because the weather was so nice, and he was feeling good, and he was just had a good day. And somebody he didn't even know came by and took his life unnecessarily. And I think that we need to acknowledge those people out there who on the struggle side, those people who aren't criminals, those people who aren't vagrants, who aren't doing wrong, who just, you know, wrong place, wrong time. You know, that real stuff happens. So there's real tragedies that go on, and we can address the other dude. Because, like I said, I want to give that nod to Robert Godwin Sr. because his life, he was he 78, I believe?
Yeah, and you know what, the one foul thing about what's going on now, because I think Negroes, we are becoming the biggest oppressors of each other, right?
Yeah.
Is that now everyone is like, yo, his girl was hella young. That means they were with each other this much, so he's a pedophile. Like, it's like, yo, let the man rest in power, and let the man rest and be who he was for his family. Let's not go pry into this guy. It's like, as much as we always point the finger at the supremacists, at the system, and trust me, we definitely know how they have, all of the things that kind of happen to us is entangled by their trickery, their foolery, and their plan. But if we keep on executing the plan with them and helping them push us backwards, I think that we got to look at ourselves in the mirror. And my whole thing is the accountability part, right?
Yeah.
Like, when are we going to take accountability? And I think that's when we go diving deeper to just talk about the prowess of what happened in that moment with the dude, right?
Yeah. So the dude, Steve Stevens, is the one who took the life of the older gentleman. And he had a breakdown where he was saying, well, alleged breakdown, because a couple things on that. So he had a breakdown, but I'm addressing what he said first. I understand what you're saying.
He
said that he did this because he snapped because he had a thankless job. He worked at a university.
A lot of us do.
Yeah, he said he worked at a university and he listened to other people's problems all the time.
And nobody listened to his.
And no one listened to his. His friends, every time he tried to go through that. Yeah. Every time he tried to present an issue to his friends, he was kind of told, you know, you're feminine acting, knock that crying mess off.
Sounds like a Negro.
Then he had his mother, whom he said, you know, he didn't get support. And then he had his girlfriend, for whom he said was pretty much the capper that put him over the edge.
It could happen.
Which was dealing with her. Well, the reason why I say that is because I saw the video part, like the interview part. I didn't watch the part where he was shot. I just saw kind of the, I guess, the aftermath part of it when he was talking about, man, I just shot these people, whatever. Very lucid, very focused, clear thinking individual.
Yeah.
So to me, when I think of breaking down, snapping, I need to see some sweat beads. I need to see some razzled, some frazzled, some kind of disheveled look about you. That is a very lucid, unaccountable individual that can clearly and detailed say, no, it was her fault for this, it was their fault for that, it was this and this and this, and I did this because nobody listened to me. And clear focus, not missing a beat, regulated heart rate, like solid dude. Like, I didn't see no part of struggle in this man's face coming to grips with what just happened or any of that.
But at the end of the day, like, how can we paint a picture of what mental health is supposed to look like, mental illness is supposed to look like?
Well, no. What I say is that I'm not making the argument that this man was not mentally unstable, whatever. What I say is that I'm saying you did, this is just my take, and this is not, you know, no string of letters after my name, no doctor, whatever. Just my take on it is this is where you need to say, I'm just on some stuff. Like, when you start talking about, I did this because you did that, because you did this, because you didn't do this. When you can start listing off all the people that you say pushed you to doing something, That to me is what starts to take away from your the emotional problems. You know what I mean?
And I think that's why a lot of people are trying to create a conspiracy theory, which we'll get to a little bit later.
Yeah.
I just look at it because I deal with a situation in my own personal life. My mom is schizophrenic.
Yeah.
So in a sense of, I see what you're saying. I have seen crazy, like, okay, but then at the same time, I've also watched personally friends really lose it and be as calm. Just literally the other day, I'm hanging out with this guy, and next thing you know, they're in a hospital. You know what I'm saying? They're getting treatment for whatever, depression, for a mental breakdown. And I think that in a sense of not taking away from the victim, not taking away from the heinous act, the cowardly act, but also having to be balanced to look at it that this was a man that was crying out for help, that was so fed up, that knew because of the world we live in currently today, the only way, and in a sense of, it's the irony of it, but the only way he's going to get the attention from all those people is by going live on Facebook. Because as we know, more or less, a lot of us do so much social media posting, social media showing, look at me, help me, save me, because now more or less people will, if you don't know a person, they might be on your friend list, but you don't really know them like that. They may reach out, or someone is going to try to help or understand what you're going through because they may be going through the same thing.
I get that. And please, let me preface, I do not take anything away from people who go through, who are really battling mental issues. And I'm not even saying that he
But that's what I'm holding. But see, that's what I'm saying. But in the same sense of when you know that, there's a lot of people, dog, that are craving for someone just to pay attention and to understand them. I will say this because I've gone through these moments where at times, because I was so frustrated with that person that I was with, I was like, I want to have something happen to her, or I want to do something to myself because I want that person to understand the level of anger and frustration I am receiving right now currently.
I get that too. And I mean, I don't think that there aren't people who lash out and have emotional breaks and are out of character because of things going on. And that's just if you're, for the sake of discussion, say, okay. Not if you're battling bipolar disorder or forms of schizophrenia, or you have any type of actual physiological issues. Like if you're just an emotional issue, like if you're just having a bad day and you just snap on somebody, I get that happening. You can get overwhelmed with a bunch of other stuff. And this is just the last person you happen to see. Typically, so I worked in bars and clubs and worked security and stuff for years. And it was always addressed that when somebody comes at you with a bunch of, with the chest stuck out and wanting to fight, you always know it's not about you. Like, you've never seen this person before in your life. So whatever it is that's going on with them is between them and something else that's got nothing to do with you. So I get people who have emotional breakdowns and have issues with people in the moment that does not involve the person because they just had too much or they're getting fed up. I think that both sides are real. I personally just had an issue with it just for the way that it played out, and it's not rooted in anything substantial. You know what I mean? Like, it's not rooted in anything.
Yeah, but at the same time, the way I saw it, the calmness of it, I looked at it as like, this dude knows he's in too deep. He's crying out for help. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't know what he's doing at this particular time. He's just really at his breaking point. I'm not condoning it. I do understand it because I've been at very clear points of my breaking point to where I've had to call one of my partners and literally, the friend that I just said, my dude Pierre Harper, who I love to the death of me and to the life of me as well, to calm me down in those moments, because life is, as we know, can get very tricky and very shitty and very shifty all at the same time.
I get that. So one thing to look at is that let's break this up a little bit.
He should have got help though.
Yeah. So starting off with the dude now, because he tried to put everything on everyone around him.
His mom and his girlfriend.
He put on his mom, his girlfriend, his friends, his co-workers, the people. Like he started with everybody but him. So I'm saying, if you're somebody in that position, if you're feeling like I reached out to my significant other and they just don't get me, I try to talk to my mama and she just is not hearing me. I try to go to my boys, my support structure, or my girls and whatever, and you're just not getting anything back. I get where that can be disheartening and where that can get you where you start to feel a little off. And this is where it goes into something that's important, and specifically in our community, because we have this thing to where we don't believe that we need to see therapists or that we're anti. You'll take it to Jesus. You'll take it to your mama, but won't take it to Dr. So-and-so. You ain't trying to get on that couch. You ain't trying to, the therapist, the counselors, the seeing psychiatrists.
Or you take it to a bottle or take it to
we're for whatever reason, we've attached this negative stigma to getting professional help for mental or emotional issues. Like you should be able to give it to Jesus, give it to Jack Daniels.
And he'll fix it.
Smoke a little weed, you'll be all right. But there's some stuff that if you're really walking around with that stuff that's on your heart and on your spirit, that you are just that it feels like nobody gets it, that's when you need to say something to somebody that may have that string of letters behind their name.
And the thing about it, and when you talk about like the friends and everything like that, it's a rarity that you have a friend that does not judge you, doesn't take the information that you told them and use it against you or do some pillow talking, right?
Yeah.
Because in the moment of, I think, especially for the black male, we've never been taught to be vulnerable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's these emotions that we have. Like I remember watching a video. I was at a training one time and it was a 3-year-old boy getting his shots, right?
Yeah.
And he started crying and his father started talking about him like, yo, you're a man. Don't cry. Real men don't cry.
Man up.
Man up. And so when I was watching it, it was like, back in the day, I would have been like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. But now I'm in touch, in tune with my emotions, more or less. I'm like, dude, that's the worst thing you could possibly do for that young
scared child.
Oh, my God.
And you're negating their feelings.
Exactly. So as young black males and females as well, we at earlier ages, some of us, a majority of us, have been put in traumatic situations. All of us come from the trauma of we were enslaved, right? And the same sense of being enslaved that we are being taught that was the only thing and the first thing that we were here to do and none of the other stuff. So we're in a school, we see all these kids, and if you were a kid that wasn't in a predominantly black school, you're with a bunch of white kids and some other kids, and then you hear in history, oh yeah, by the way, you guys basically took care of all of us. Like, oh, really? Or if you're in a predominantly black school, that a lot of those kids are hyperacting and then you can't really learn, so you got to jump in with the hyperactive kids as well because like everybody else is doing it, so you're going to go follow the lead. So there's so many different traumatic things that happen in our lives, and we talked about the molestation, we talked about the incarceration, we've talked about all these different things and all these different shows that we've had to state where the black folk are going and we're heading and where we're at right now. So when we talk about trauma, the fact that we have not dealt with any of those incidents, we haven't clearly got diagnosed. We haven't clearly had it be on a health kind of focus for black people in general. It's almost kind of like, well, it happened, move on, deal with it. And that doesn't happen with everybody else.
Yeah, and for people who don't quite get that, if you're of other ethnicities or nationalities and you can't quite put your finger on what that feels like, it's almost like you broke both your legs and someone's telling you to walk it off. So you're like, no, this has to be reset. It has to be rehealed. It has to be taken care of. You can't just tell somebody to just walk off. And when people give the argument that, well, you weren't a slave and nobody you knew was a slave, so it shouldn't affect you. There is something that is referred to as post-traumatic slave disorder. And here's a way to put it in a better scenario for somebody. So if your great-grandfather played violin and your great-grandfather played violin and your grandfather played violin. Now, that doesn't mean that you or your kids are going to be musically inclined, but it's a much higher probability based upon the generations that came before you. When you come from trauma, abuse, emotional scarring, unresolved issues from your great-grandfather had it, then your great-grandfather had it, then your grandfather had it, then your father had it, does that mean that you're necessarily going to get it or that your child will get it? No, but you're much more likely to carry over some of those traits. So when it comes to emotional triggers, when it comes to psychological and traumatic responses, it's the same as if people who are terrified of dogs and don't know why find out that your mom got bit when she was 6. There are some genetic markers that go into being fearful, but there are some things to where things just trigger you. Things trigger your parents. Things trigger your aunts and your uncles and your grandparents and the people that are around you. Things that trigger your neighbors. Yeah. Like all those things, and then they start exhibiting behavior which kind of puts you in a certain kind of emotional and mental space.
Well, basically at the same time as well, just to make it plain, bottom line, as a black person in America or a black person in general in the world, we are forced to be the best of the best at all times. We have to be greater than great, so in the same sense, when people talk about, oh, well, slavery never affected you because, you weren't mother effer. What was the crack 80s? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's mass incarceration? What's the education system? Like, talk to me about how it hasn't affected me. And let's go down the line of all these different things that have affected us. But with that being said, that still does not give this guy currently who's done all of what he's saying, because we don't know if he killed 13 people.
Yeah, because that's something important too, because he said, and another thing with the video is that the video wasn't released live. Huh. So he filmed the shooting first, then released it hours later. Huh. And so in the video that he was doing, he was saying that he killed like 13, 15
he's
people.
Like he got him in a
and he said, look behind this building and such and such.
And then we'll see if that is real or not.
And to the point
right now, it's not.
There's no other bodies found except for the one that he shot. That also was what made me kind of get a little side-eyed.
Well, and I think that's why when we go into like the whole conspiracy theory as well, people have said that. But my saying is like this. Bottom line is you still have to find a way to navigate, to receive and get some help. Yes. Cut off some people, because I'm telling you, man, because I've been through these dark roads of depression. I get it. Everything is falling apart. No, I find that help.
I understand, and it took me years before I eventually resolved a bunch of stuff that was going. I was almost 30 when I got over a bunch of stuff.
Donnie want to talk about the stuff that I finally resolved.
But I'm saying, so I get the idea of if you feel like there's nobody that you can talk to about things. But this is why it's also saying something to the fact of, if you're the person, if you can't find relief in the people you already know, like the support structure you're reaching out to, you're not getting help, no one seems to be hearing you, then you need to reach outside of yourself, out of their circle, and you need to enlist some help, call somebody, talk to somebody, see somebody. B, if you're the somebody else. Like, I know a lot of times we get busy in our day-to-day lives, and we get busy and we got to pay our bills, and we got to worry about our kids, and I got to make it to my job, and so-and-so got basketball, and such got band or whatever. Sometimes about, hearing people. Like, some people aren't just always whining, or they're not just always complaining. Some people, man, she's always in some drama, or he always got something going on.
There's a difference between drama and.
But some people hear it that way. Yeah. Some people, like when your people, whether it be your siblings, your friends, or whatever, when they keep bringing you something, there is a percentage of people who are just talking to hear themselves talk. Yeah. But there are some people who are going through stuff, and sometimes you just gotta just check in with your people. Yeah. Like really check in with your people.
But at the same time, you have to also know, because like I said again, I know that there was a whole bunch of people that I couldn't sit there and express myself with the things that I was going through. That's why I said when I went to Portland and Seattle, like that was redemption. Like I ain't been there since the time, in 2008 when I kind of left the lifestyle. And then in the changing of the guard of who I am today, it took a lot. And it doesn't stop right then and there. Because I think that the pressures of the world and the pressures of life, it creates that avenue. And the unfortunate thing about black people is that we tend to laugh at individuals because we always tend to be like, those are white problems. Black folk don't have those problems.
Well, sticking with what you just said right there, which is huge within us, is that because in so many ways and on so many levels we have such a self-esteem deficit, It's why we try to purchase self-esteem or wear self-esteem or drive self-esteem. We are the only group that truly just revels in the satisfaction of being able to belittle, insult, and put down each other. Like we look at wherever, depending upon where you're from, we call it capping, snapping, signifying, roasting, wherever it is you're from. There's a term for it, but it means the same thing. Where there's a satisfaction in being able to insult somebody down to put their self-esteem on zero.
Misery loves misery, pain loves pain.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but those are things that what we think is funny, and what we think is, oh, let's laugh at so and so. A, you do that because you're not solid in you. Yeah. And B, that's how we get people who are on the edge, who don't
to go
feel
over
like,
the edge.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are things that we need to say something to address. Some of the cultural ways that we get down that perpetuate some of the problems.
But that's before, like, in the eras that we were in, like, it was killed or be killed with that, man. Like, literally, it wasn't not in a literal sense of kill, but in a sense, well, some people might not, in a sense of, like, if you didn't know how to knuckle up or tap back, you were done. Like, you know what I'm saying? You might as well sit in the house, don't come outside until you're like 21 because you're going to get it. And that, to be honest with you, we weren't as sensitive. It was almost like a ritual, trial by fire, that you just had to just, man up. But now in these moments where things are a lot different, you know what I'm saying? The black family is not as structured as it used to be. It's more defined in single parent homes compared to, like, you had Big Mama. We always specify that, Big Mama. You had Big Daddy, all that kind of stuff. And you had a community that kind of be a village movement. Now you got these little young people walking around here with nobody to go to. And in the places that they go to, they get abused again. Yeah. So I look at the foster care system. I'm dealing with young kids that have been traumatized from ages like 2 years old to being 19 as a grown person. Hasn't dealt with the trauma at 2, but now got trauma at 19, and then they're about to age out of the foster care system.
Oh, no, it's bad out there. And the idea of, we put so much on kids. Like when I hear people all the time talk about, he's the man of the house and he's 8. You know what I'm saying? Like,
or the sense of,
or you put the responsibilities of the girl who's 10.
Yeah.
Her
she's
job
10,
is to bathe her little brothers.
She's to take care of the 2 kids. She's cooking a whole meal, right? And she's washing the laundry.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get having chores and I get that, but we put adult responsibility. Like, I can't count how many times we dealing with kids and stuff. We talk, like, parents who address things to their children. Like, I've known people who are splitting up and they'll talk about, well, I asked so-and-so this, referring to their child. I was like, why are you discussing this with a kid? Kid's like 7, 8. They don't get a vote. Like why are we bring adult problems to children? The old days, it used to be if adults were talking in the room,
kids would shut the fuck up.
Get out. Like, what do you if you sit and you look over and see a little kid hanging around the table. No, this is grown folks. What you doing in here? Yeah. Go outside and play. Have a separate table. Go in your room.
They wasn't even allowed to sit with adults when it came to times like that.
Yeah. Okay. Now it's pull up a chair. Now it's, we put these adult things and situations in there, over sexualized. I mean, there's so many ways we address how many you get so many layers on a kid when they're young. But I think the point that to work it is that, like I said, if you're somebody who's going through stuff, and if you can't seem to find relief in the circle you're in, like you exhaust, if you feel like you've exhausted all the avenues of the people then this might be time to start going into new circles.
You got to find new friends, man.
You got to find, like I said, if you got to just Google psychiatrist nearby, you put yourself in counseling. There's got to be some accountability.
You have to be willing to take and accept that there's a problem and go find the help and seek the help. I do not justify any of the actions to make a point.
Yeah.
Right? To say, well, this is my pain. Someone else is going to feel my pain. Yeah. Right? And at the same time, I hate that we're in this moment with all of the other stuff going on, because we look at it and segue into the fact of how we're looking about accountability, going to search for help. And we're telling people, if you're listening, you have these issues. If you need to call us, hit us up. You know what I'm saying?
Talk to somebody.
Please do. But at the same time, creating a violent act of some Negro who, in a sense, was asking for help, but being a coward at the same time, to create this conspiracy theory around him as if, like, well, there's a little bit more to the story. And I do believe there's more to the story deeply inside of the confines of him and his girlfriend and his mother. But in a sense of this bigger story, it's like we're highlighting this guy like he was that much of a factor, and we're not looking at the two things that we have to look at. Black folks got a real big issue with lashing out on other black folks, right? Correct. And then black folks have a real big issue with mental health, with mental illness. From the facts into the times that we just come out and pop out in America, we're already embraced in it. From all that. And then one more thing. Then in the same sense of always trying to find an excuse for certain behaviors. Like, okay, we're going to go ahead and say because of that, and the other. Yo, sometimes things are just plainly what it is. And I believe this is exactly what it is, because we look at the place where it happened in Ohio. Negroes is killing each other every day. So this is not something like, oh my God, here it happened in the suburbs
choosing to shoot
of Chicago.
Somebody there is not a foreign idea.
It's not. So, and then we got to get away from the idea that black people don't do this. No, we do this. We have now, unfortunately, we have adopted a lot of the behavior of our white counterparts that you usually, when you hear these things, you wouldn't even have to say.
Shoot an 80-year-old.
Exactly. It'll be like, damn white person.
Well, the old days it used to be, if you heard somebody say, man, he shot this 80-year-old dude, the first words, did he owe him money? Like,
the first person was like, damn, white people's crazy. That's what.
No, man. If you heard it was a black person. The first thing you'd be like, did he owe him money? Did he, like, you're trying to find a personal connection that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
It's like, just some 80-year-old dude, didn't even know him.
Yeah. But now, dude, like, literally, we're doing, just even talking about this story, a brother just, like, killed 3 people in Fresno.
Yeah. Well, so let's take the focus off the shooters just for a second, and let's talk about, like, what you said was very real, that the mental health state is a real problem, like a real epidemic, because there's a lot of people that don't become mass shooters, don't even become killers, but have extreme bouts of depression, suicidal tendencies, addiction, whether that be drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, just high risk behavior. And all these things are just trying to find some ways to try to put some kind of a Band-Aid on the pain and trauma that people are going through. And this idea of toughen up, man up, walk it off, get over it, like, partially to what you're saying is this is a I don't want to disrespect them by calling them softer, but they are a more sensitive generation now. And you can call that whatever, if you think it's better or worse. I don't think it's necessarily better to be rigid and cold and frozen. I don't think that makes you more of a man or more of a woman any more than having a high emotional awareness makes you less of a man or less of a woman. But with the old way of dealing with things does not work in this new generation of people. So this idea, you can't tell a 15-year-old 2017, slap him across the back of the neck and tell him to walk it off. We're not there anymore.
No. So we have to change and to develop and move with the times that we're at.
Yeah, and we're not doing that.
Not at all.
So I think that not only for the younger generation that's coming up, but if you're still around, that old way of dealing with stuff is not working either. If you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, we call a kid soft now, or man, he's sensitive, or he's this and that. Them stress days is what was killing us, was giving us heart attacks.
There are some sensitive ass Negroes.
There are,
but there's some cowards. I mean, let's keep it 100. We can't just
No. Cowards and I'm separating the two. Like I said, the people who are really going through stuff, we can't just write it off as being sensitive. Some of these they need some help. They need to reach out. They need some compassion and some conversation.
But I've dealt with a lot of these youngsters. A lot of them are sensitive, though. But in the same sense, with that being said, in the framework, totally, that is true. That is, we have to be able to move and direct ourselves differently. But at the same time, you also have to be able to move and walk into the fact of understanding, like, yo, I may need some help.
Well, because, I believe that there's a difference between, if you have integrity, if you have strong character, if you're principled, you can be sensitive. You know what I mean? Like you can be in your feelings, but if you still carry integrity and character, and you still a man or a woman of your word, and you still do try to do the best to do right by people, you can feel how you need. Being in your feelings to me is I don't feel a certain kind of way about you.
And I always want to make sure that I state the sensitivity of a lot of the young people that I see, and even some adults. It's like, I can say something about you, right? And this happened to one of my youngsters, right? This one of my mentees. Like, it was a sensitive ass Negro that killed him because he said something about his music, right?
Yeah.
It's like, back in our day, we're gonna knuckle up, or we're gonna we're gonna have
we're just gonna exchange.
It's gonna be a roasting session for about 3 or 4 hours, right? It's probably gonna last to the next day, right?
Yeah.
But he shot because he got emotional about what that person said. And I say sensitive in the sense of where now you feeling like, I want to kill this person because of what this person has just said to me, or how he got me feeling. Yeah. Right? And you got a lot of those people.
That's what I'm saying. We're talking about different people.
Yeah. Sensitive people, you'll find them a lot more, like with social media. This whole goddamn world is sensitive. You post something up, and then next thing you know, people lose their minds.
They're on their feeling. That's what I'm saying. That's why I preface the difference between being principled with your integrity or your character. Because you can get in your feelings, but don't allow your feelings to get you out of your character.
Yeah.
Because something that was taught to me some time back, and I've appreciated the lesson, was the difference between living by principles, not just your feelings. And the way that he explained it to me, he said, at the end of your feelings, there may be nothing. Like, you can feel something and feel it wholeheartedly, but at the end, you're just in your feelings. There's nothing based in it. You're just hungry, so you're irritated. You didn't sleep much, so you got an attitude. Like, you didn't really mean nothing to your feelings. But at the end of every principle is a promise. So if you have a principle of, I'm not going to cheat on my wife, that's a principle that you live by. Now, regardless of how you feel when you see that girl in that mini skirt or that push-up bra or them heels, that's how you feel. Your principle will keep you from getting out of character and doing the wrong thing. Like, so I think we have we don't stress principles. Like character and integrity, like, we did the manhood mentoring conferences and stuff. Like, character and integrity is foreign to these young folks coming up. They just all feelings. But that aside, like I said, I think the important stuff to stress is the folks who are going through, not only, I just stress like checking on your people. Checking on your sister, on your brother, on your cousins, checking on your mama and your daddy. Just because they're older don't mean that they're immune to life situations and circumstances. Just because they've been dealing with it longer, just I think that's important to say something about and to be accountable yourself. Know when you need to put yourself on timeout.
Oh man,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
and I feel like we might have to put a few people on timeout, going back into the point of the conspiracy thing.
Okay. The conspiracy.
Let's go into the conspiracy.
Okay. The conspiracy for everything is not a government setup. Everything is not, there's not 15 layers to everything. Everything is not, there's not the magic bullet in the grassy knoll. And some stuff just what it is.
Some shit is what it is, man. Bottom line.
Sometime he raped that girl. Sometimes she stole that money.
Yeah.
Sometimes he killed that dude.
Yeah.
Sometimes they broke in that house.
Yeah.
Sometimes there was no extra. It was him. Sometimes OJ did it. Like sometimes like everything is not conspiracy. Could have been this, possibly that. Like when we start reaching, and
Negroes are reaching.
Yeah, I've heard.
This has gotten to the point where I feel like it's saying, is Bigfoot still alive? That's where we're getting at with this.
Bigfoot stole your car.
Oh man.
Well, you didn't see the car, and you ain't seen Bigfoot.
And you know what? And trust me, like, it's not knocking, because we all know the foulness of the American government. We know the foulness. We kind of broke down some of this stuff earlier in the show, and we've broken down a lot of it all the time in our show. But at the same time, sometimes I just believe with a little bit of technology, it almost creates Negroes to think too much outside of the box. And yes, we must question. Yes, we may have to look at it on a deeper lens. But sometimes, most times, it's just is what it is.
Yeah, if you want to get on the theory of what systemic things got somebody there, that can be a conversation to have. You can sit there, maybe the situations at their job, maybe some family stuff growing up. For all I know, dude was molested by mom's boyfriend, so he felt a certain kind of way about her, which led him to feel a certain kind of way about women, which led him to all of a sudden dude walking down the street look like dude who touched. You could put a lot of scenarios that could possibly lead up to a certain situation. That's different than, man, somebody planted a gun and it was, CIA involvement, FBI was on the scene, the cover-ups. Sometimes it's just not that many layers.
And I think that because of so many different things that have come out, and people have used the example of Chris Donor, and I tell people all the time, the Chris Donor thing was totally different because at the end of the day, Chris Donor had evidence and he had a whole bunch of truth to speak upon the LA Police Department. So, of course, what goes down with Chris Donor is we gonna burn the motherfucker in the house, right?
Okay, if you want to go, because I'm not even getting all deep on that story, but I wouldn't even equate the two. You're talking about no. That's what people are breaking it down.
I'm saying,
but here's the point. I said the reason why I wouldn't equate the two is you're talking about one person who had documented evidence of showing police corruption all throughout the department. As well as involvement that went on a political level through people of elected officials, someone who was deeply and strategically trained. Chris Dormer was passenger 57.
Yes, sir.
So when it came to the police hunt, he knew how to throw the shade. They had him looking for him in Mexico when he was in the mountains. And this dude was when you start talking about all the different layers to that, there you can start finding areas where it could possibly go left where it was right. This Negro in Cleveland, it wasn't that deep.
But at the same time,
I'm saying for people who are trying to go for, because you talk about that dude over there, it could be this dude over there. No, we're talking about a dude on government, federal, local levels of law enforcement and politicians and a whole lot of money and a bunch of situations. There's layers to that.
And at the same time, when you look at this situation, at the end of the day, then you got the other people. Well, this was used to distract us from this. Then I say to the people that are saying we're being distracted from this to that, what are you doing with the thing that we're being distracted from? Or what are you doing? What are you saying? How are you handling this? Since we're so distracted, please get to the thing that's going to be the biggest distraction, right? Or not going to be the biggest distraction. Do something about whatever. At the end of the day, there's things that I will really question, like the Dallas police shooting.
Yeah.
I'll look at that and be like, none of that makes any sense because the way the story came out.
No eyewitness to the specific shooter, and then you sent a drone in to blow up the building.
Exactly. Those are
questionable circumstances.
But when a man, and I want to say that he actually did a video. The first video that you were talking about, I want to preface that he actually did a video before he did a shooting, right? There was a video that he was doing. He's like, man, I'm just losing my mind, to his partner, blah, blah, blah. So he said some stuff that kind of led up. And then there was another video of him at front of his girlfriend's job, and he was talking about, she screwed up my life. So there was a lot of different things that kind of played into
it's still A to B to C.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
kind of like this Negro just snapped. And in the same sense, Negroes, remember, this is Ohio. As you said off air, this is mini Chicago.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people are not familiar with Ohio outside of LeBron.
Negroes kill Negroes in Ohio.
Well, I think, like I said, with the exception of LeBron James, so they've heard.
There's nothing in Ohio.
They've heard of Akron, and they know of Cleveland, and maybe they know something about Cincinnati. Maybe. Yeah, they're shooting up. They're shooting up. They're shooting in Cleveland.
Shouts out to the queen. You know what I'm saying? One of my queens who I mentor both her sons. She is from Ohio. And she said, King, and this is before the shooting, she said, sent me some stuff in Facebook. Like, you see what I left and why I left? I said, damn, girl. Like they're killing each other.
Yeah, and so and the reason why, so it's a smaller, geographically, you're not talking about a lot of people.
Not at all.
So I think you're talking about somewhere around 400,000 people.
Wow.
So who are just on top of each other. And before we get into all that systemic stuff, it's not coincidence that when you get a bunch of people on top of each other with limited resources that you start finding violence.
Kill or be killed.
You start finding, you're getting violence. That's you don't have to be a sociologist or a rocket scientist to figure that out. But what we're talking about is the fact is just about saying something to the idea of not being afraid to say something if it's you, and listening when somebody's saying something to you. Like if you know that you've been going through it, and especially if it sounds like if let's for the sake of discussion, I'll hold this man to everything that he said in his post and his video. If you know that this is something that's building up in you where you consistently feel like you're not being heard, you know that you're going to your coworkers and your friends and you feel like it's falling on deaf ears. If you, like I said, if taking it to the pastor may help you, going to your priest, your rabbi, if going, you might, like I said, don't be afraid to put yourself on timeout. You might have to, go see somebody, get on that couch, get your Fraser time in for a couple of days and get things square again. Don't be so in your pride that you find yourself in a situation that you hurt yourself or somebody else. And if you're somebody who's hearing it, they said everyone's not that whiny sister. Everyone's not just that weak complaining brother or mom or dad or aunt or uncle. Some people are really going through it, and for some reason they're coming to you.
Yeah.
So before you get so hung up on whatever's going on in your day-to-day life, we just saying not only to say something, but listen when people are saying something to you.
I definitely believe that. I mean, like I said, I'm a survivor of, certain traumas, and I continue to work on myself every day. I never, really saw a therapist. I dealt with therapy when I was younger, but didn't even know what it was all about. Yeah. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? I think it might have been some things about my mother at the particular time. But you just go through stuff as a man, you know what I'm saying? And as a woman, and this life that we lead, because so many expectations of you, and then especially being black, it's like it feels like it's a double-edged sword. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you look at our society, that even people like you look at incredible actors like Heath Ledger, Robin Williams, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. That
the struggle's really real.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? That took their own lives like Heath Ledger at the height of his career. Robin Williams, yeah, you might have not been as poppin' and you had your show canceled, but you're Robin Williams. You're the legend. You can do a little hour comedy set and people are all going to run to you. There's breaking points in people's lives that at the end of the day that we have to be very clear and very mindful and be very open to let them be vulnerable, to let them have that space to cuddle and love on them and hug on them, and let them be assured that you can tell me and you can pour out your emotions without me looking at you any differently and using your pain as a way to play you, right?
Yeah.
And using your pain as a way to be like, oh, that dude is weak or she's weak, and I can go ahead and do this and do that to them. Because I think with black people, there's so much distrust in our community,
yeah.
And there's such this stigma in the fact that we all are strong men and we're all strong women,
yeah.
That nothing breaks us. We just gonna be tough. We got to get away from that and say, yo, I'm hurting right now. Like, it's okay for me to grieve. Like, now I cry more. Like, before I would never cry. But if I'm feeling, especially with some of the stuff that's happened to my kids, like,
yeah.
I let it go because at the time it's no longer for me to be tough. And so it helps with my grieving so I can move on. And I tell everybody, and I will say this again, don't be afraid to sit there and speak and say something, because you don't know who that can help, who that can impact, and there's so many more people that are going through the same thing as you.
Yeah, because these emotional things, being emotional is not a fault, and being in touch with how you feel is not it's not something that you should necessarily be ashamed of. And if you're somebody who's going through something, you shouldn't be ashamed of that. We all have different problems and issues, and we deal with them differently. So just because the person that's standing next to you may not deal with it the way you deal with it, it doesn't take away how important it is to you. And don't be afraid to say something about what you're going through. And like I said, don't be afraid or don't just be so quick to shy off when people are saying something to you. This is the Say Something podcast here with the one and only Mr. Barry Accius.
Yes, sir.
Since we saying something, let's say something about where people can find you social media wise.
Facebook, Barry Accius, BerryAccius. Instagram, @TeamVoy, VOY. And, of course, Twitter, Barry Accius. Shouts out again to all my new followers. I hate that follower word, but all to my new people in Seattle and also in Portland. Showed a lot of love, and I appreciate it. Continue to follow the show, and let's get busy.
I'm Jermaine Morris on Facebook and every other social media. It's @JMorrisCEO. Here with Mr. Barry Accius.
Yeah.
And until next show, we'll holler at you later.
Say something.